Hey, 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 how are y'all doing this evening? I hope that you have had a wonderful day, that you have accomplished uh, something wonderful for today, that you've gotten some things done that you really desired to get done. I am about to uh, complete today's read with me. Today's read with me is coming from the second part of Genesis 30. And so, in the first part, we looked at Jacob and all them kids. And we're going to look at how the father blessed him after all of that situation. So just checking here to make sure we've got sound and that sound is all working good. And then we are going to go on ahead and get moving for the sake of time. It's a blessing to be able to be here this afternoon for this. Um, okay. So I'm about to go ahead and get started so that I can make sure that we get done with our reading for today. We have made it through 30 chapters, and which means we've done it in excess of 30 days. So I am excited about that. And probably going to take a few days away to strategize um, and just kind of make sure that we are making progress appropriately the way that we're supposed to. But I've gotten to where I enjoy these so much because it's allowed me time to kind of get back in the flow of doing these. And so we're going to go ahead with today's read with me, um, Yaakov's Prosperity. And we've got some talking points as we go through the slides. And so we'll go ahead and get started. Now, you noticed yesterday I used the um, amplified, the classic amplified version, and just want to touch base with you real quickly about different types of Bible translations. And I borrowed um, this graphic from a group that I'm not familiar with their ministry, but I am familiar with this graphic, and so um, I don't recommend them, but I do recommend the graphic because it's good for understanding the different types of translations that you're looking at when it comes down to scriptures. And um, I am of the mindset that the translation that helps you with your understanding, that helps you best understand the scriptures, is the best one for you. I tend to prefer the King James just because traditionally we've used the King James. And I love the language of it. I love the poetry of the language. I love the majesty of the language in there. And it is my preferred, but it's not the only version that you can use. For these, I've been using the New American Standard, which I do enjoy as well. It doesn't get as creative, I think, as some of versions do to help with making things interesting. But I do believe that there are versions that do a good job of doing the translations for you. And so you've got those word for word versions, which is over on the green end of the spectrum. And those are going to be, I was watching someone this morning and she really helped me with my wording as far as um, like what the difficulties are with some of these versions. Some of the versions are difficult for reading if you're trying to read for comprehending. And so if you're not familiar with the scriptures and you're not, doing a scholarly study or preparing to teach, some of those word for word translations are going to be complicated for you to use because they're not intended. I don't think they are intended for those readers that are reading for comprehension. I don't know that sometimes they're the best versions for that because you may have older language. Their goals, what they're designed to do, where they're showing you that word for word, isn't necessarily for that everyday reader that's trying to get understanding of the stories, or you're trying to catch the main points in stories, because you've got to jump over the hurdle of what is the language doing here. And so that's where you're looking at the Hebrew, which of course, unless you know Hebrew, isn't helpful for you at all. But some of the other versions that are commonly used, but they're word for word, like the Amplified. But we talked yesterday about, remember that classic Amplified, for the purpose of amplifying the intended meaning. There's a lot of words that they've thrown in, and so again, you're not necessarily getting a version that's helping you if you're trying to become familiar with those stories. In those instances, you're looking more for something thought for thought or paraphrasing, and I get nervous when we get over into the paraphrasings, just simply because I think it's easy to take liberty with the scriptures and put your intended focus on it. So, my recommendation when people are trying to determine what translation is going to be best for them to use, my recommendation is always the recommendation that helps you understand, that you are able to understand, too, and be very careful when you're looking at translations that only have one translator. The power that some of these translations have is, there was a committee that worked on there's a group that worked on the translation, and so I'm not here to beat up any particular versions. There are some I don't like, and I'm not going to talk about them today, because if that's the version you use, I don't want to turn you against reading it. Read it. And if it's not what you need, I then encourage you to pray and seek guidance. Talk with your pastors. Talk with people who you have real life interaction with. Us online people, be careful, even with allowing us to even be the people that are leading you. I say, talk with your teachers, talk with people who know you and who know the scriptures, who can rightly direct you in a way that you are able to get to a translation of the scriptures that helps you with your understanding, that helps you grow. Because how do you grow if you're just calling words but you don't understand what you're reading? Kind of like the Ethiopian eunuch. He says, how can I know unless somebody teaches me or makes it plain to me? He's able to read it, but what's the meat in it? What is it that I'm supposed to be getting out of it? What is it telling me? And then how do I take what I'm reading and share it with others if I don't understand it? So my recommendation is the version that allows you to understand the scriptures and helps you grow in your relationship with the Father. So but in yesterday, we looked at all of these kids. We looked at all the sons and the daughter that Jacob had with his two wives and those two handmaids of the wives. We saw the Amplified call them secondary wives. I think English calls them concubines. But these women were handmaids to the brides, who then became mothers of children to our brother Jacob here. And so we went through each of them, talked about their names. We looked at them in birth order. We saw kind of how the conditions in the relationships between the parents, how that impacted quite a bit in their lives, and just, the power of, understanding that, adding children to a relationship isn't going to always do what Leah thought it would do. Oh, this is going to finally be the one that, makes him love me. This is going to be the one that causes him to stay with me. This is going to, oh, now I'm going to get a place in his heart. And she's using that, his willingness to have physical intimacy and the fact that they're producing children, she's using that to believe that those actions are going to gain her favor in his heart, when in fact his heart and his love never left the wife of his intention, the wife of his heart, which was Rachel. So we have those sons all the way down to all the way from, Reuben, the oldest, all the way down to Joseph, the youngest. But we know that there is an additional son coming later. But for the chapters that we've read so far, we stopped at Joseph. And you watched the other one. We kind of walked through our scorecard of who gave birth to whom. And we see that Leah was very, very, very prolific in reproduction. But we know that, again, his love stayed with Rachel. And Joseph becomes the child that he really favors and we will see, how that impacts things moving forward. But we'll see that later on. For right now, it's really just important to know that Joseph has these wives, he has these children, and he is with family, his mother's family right now. We're going to see some family characteristics and traits, character traits that we see in everybody here, and just kind of how trickery runs through these early situations with him. So we're going to get started. Let's go. Genesis 30. Yaakov, Jacob's prosperity. It says, now it came about when Rachel had born Joseph that Yaakov said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place and to my own country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me depart, for you yourself know my service which I have rendered you. But Laban said to him, if now it pleases you, stay with me. I have divined that the Lord has blessed me on your account. And we're looking at, we didn't stop to talk about him when we went through the first time. But just to kind of give you a bit of a refresher on who this is he's talking to. This is Laban. Laban is the grandson of Nahor, Abraham's brother. He's the son of Bethuel. He's the brother of Rebekah and father of Leah and Rachel, which, if you're following along, that makes him Jacob's uncle and father-in-law. Okay, so verse 28 says, he continued, name me your wages and I will give it. For he said to him, you yourself know how I have served you and how your cattle have fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased to a multitude, and Yahweh has blessed you wherever I turned. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also? Remember, I got all these kids over here. So he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you will do this one thing for me, I will again pasture and keep your flock. Let me pass through your entire flock today, removing from there every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black one among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and such shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come concerning my wages. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted amongst the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, will be considered stolen. Laban, he agrees to this deal. He says, good, let it be according to your word. So he removed on that day the striped and spotted male goats and all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one with white in it, and all the black ones among the sheep, and gave them into the care of his sons. And he put a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Yaakov fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Then Jacob took fresh rods of poplar and almond plane trees and peeled white stripes in them, exposing the white which was in the rods. So he makes the food favorable for the ones that he's keeping. He says, and he's training them in a way. He's training them what to eat. And so he set the rods which he had peeled in front of the flocks in the gutters, even in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink. And they mated when they came to drink. So the flocks mated by the rods, and the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. So Jacob separated the lambs, made the flocks face toward the striped, and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own herds apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Moreover, whenever the stronger of the flock were mating, Jacob would place the rods in the side of the flock in the gutters, so that they might mate by the rods. So again, he's training the sheep that he wants. Okay. But when the flock was feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. And so we're looking at a couple of real slick characters here who understand how to make happen what they want to happen. Because you'll recall in previous chapters, we saw Laban maneuver into getting Jacob, who wanted to marry his older daughter, to first marry the younger daughter. Some shenanigans there, but we see that's sort of something. Looks like something that runs within this family, because we can go all the way back to the story of Esau and Jacob, where Rebecca has a major part to play in assisting Jacob in ensuring that he receives the blessing, the birthright blessing, when his father is getting old. And so here we're seeing that cunning and that wisdom play out in how he's training these sheep to ensure that the healthier of the flock, the healthier of the stock, that when they go about separating out these animals, that he's going to always have the healthier of the litter of the flock. And so it says, when the flock was feeble, he did not put those reeds that they were drawn to, where they would come and eat and then mate while they were there eating. It says, but when the flock was feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. So the man became exceedingly prosperous and had large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. Now, in our next chapter, that's it for chapter 30. Chapter 30, the rest of chapter 30 there shows us that if you take chapter 30 in its entirety, what it does for us is it lays the groundwork for Jacob and his sons, which we know ultimately is where we end up with our tribes of Israel. We get the story we get to see how bringing that family together with those two wives and the two handmaids, sort of the friction between the mothers, the play for the emotions, the play on the emotions, the woman who's attempting to gain love through intimacy, love through having children, trying to work and manipulate a situation into being. We see a woman who is loved, but she's having to watch other women, other people receive the blessing that, in that culture, having children, and oh my goodness, having sons. She's watching those women around her who may not have the love of the husband, but they're actually able to produce fruit with the husband. They're able to produce seed. They're able to give him, no doubt, what he loves, which is children and sons. But then eventually we see the Lord bless her with a son of her own. And so we see all of that interplaying. We see the tension between the moms and how, Leah uses something that Rachel wants from one of her sons to buy her, basically, buy her time with Jacob. And then we see her producing, even more children. And so ultimately she ends up with more children, but she never takes Rachel's place in his heart. And so we see the walkthrough of all of the sons till we get down to Joseph, who we know is going to be key in later stories, who we know that love that he had for his mother definitely transitions over to that son, who, although he's not the firstborn of his marriages, he is the firstborn of the woman who he really had great love for. And so we're going to see all of that playing out. And then in this second part that we read this evening, we see how he gained his prosperity, how he gained great wealth while he was living with that father-in-law who years before had tricked him into, extending his years of labor with him. Well, now he sort of gets his lick back by building for himself a very healthy flock, and getting his father to agree to an arrangement that allows him to walk away with the healthiest of the bunch. And so in the next chapter, what we're going to be looking at is when things start to change and they know that it's necessary for them to make an adjustment. And they're going to, the story carries us over to when Jacob now has to flee from being there with his father-in-law. So I really, really do hope that these times together are encouraging you to spend time privately in your scriptures. If you're not spending additional time in your scriptures, then hopefully this time that we're getting with our reading, that it at least gives you something to think about as you're going throughout the day, or today as you're going throughout your evening, But it gives you some things to think about, ponder on, things that you can apply to your life, or even just getting the stories. We take the time to kind of go through and break down the stories as well, because we want to help, those who are also trying to learn from the story that is painted for us in the scriptures. And of course, we know that from those stories, there are principles that we can apply. I can't be Jacob. You can't be Joseph. You can't be Abraham. You can't replace yourself in the story as if you are them. But what you can do is learn from the principles that we learn from them, the things that we see happening in their lives. How did these people handle, strife and situations? Well, what are some ways that we as followers of Christ, what are some ways that we can use the word that is given to us, that helps us know our Father? Yes, it gives us history. Yes, it gives us prophecy, but it also is a way for us to learn how our Father operates. And so, knowing that our God is holy, knowing that our Father has a level of expectation on how we are to live our lives. He says, "Be holy as He is holy." We are to be seeking out that holiness in the same way that He is holy. And so we're supposed to be learning of Him. And so I pray that these times in the scriptures, that the stories, because yes, I will grab, some funny things, or intriguing things in the stories to kind of, make light of or highlight, just to make the point of helping them stick in your mind, really. And then think about those things as you're going throughout your day. So that's part of the reason that we're doing it daily. um, don't like to go, um, you know, for many, sometimes all they have time for in their day is, a quick meditation, um, a quick devotional or something along those lines. And I encourage people to go a little beyond those 5 minutes. The Father's giving you 24 hours. So surely we can carve out some time to spend time in the Word, spend time reading the scriptures, spend time getting those stories locked in, and then additional time that we can offer Him when we're meditating on the things that we've learned, and we're working to apply the lessons that we're learning to our walk. We're seeing how people walked out their faith. We're seeing, how people behaved. And, a lot of times I think people will see things that happen in the scriptures and believe that it's describing how you should behave. There's so many stories in the scriptures that are there to help us, but they're definitely not there for you to just follow that example and do what they did. But what it is there for is to assist you with understanding how the Lord operates through these imperfect people that you see in these scriptures. Aside from Yeshua, everybody's in these scriptures has something similar to the things that you're dealing with, similar to the challenges that you're dealing with. As we've been seeing with Jacob, he's a trickster, he's a supplanter. If there's a way for him to manipulate an advantage, he's going to find it. But then he finds himself surrounded with like people, Laban and his uncle, even his mom's got a little trickster in her, you know. Now he's got a brother who's angry with him, because of birthright that he feels was stolen, even though he willingly, for the sake of a temporary hunger, gave away the rights to that birthright. And so we see family issues throughout the scriptures. And so how did these people handle their life's issues? And how can we handle our life issues? What does the scripture say about, whatever it is that I'm dealing with? How have we seen people handle them? What were the consequences? What were the results that they got? And if I want a similar result, do I do similar things? Or are some of these stories here to help us make wiser choices? If you're a man with children with 4 women, Jacob's story will probably help you with understanding how to, like the dilemma that you're creating. If it's not clear to you, watching that story and the issues between the women currying for favor, the issues with the sons, and the confusion over favor. Yes, it works out wonderfully for Joseph. Yes, things work out in the end, because of God's purpose and the promises that he made them, but all the strife and confusion along the way. Those are lessons that we can read to be, entertained, but I think there's something more that shows us that, we, even with imperfect people, those imperfections don't cancel out purpose. And whatever that purpose is for you and your family, that I pray that you find it through the scriptures, that you find through the scriptures, that no matter how jacked up the situation is, the Lord has a way of coming in with his wisdom, with his power, and find his purpose and help you get there. So you've read these families so far. We've seen so much confusion. I know for me, when I read those stories, that was exactly one of the things. And it was literally reading about David's family that helped me with understanding that there were no issues too big for the Lord to handle, that I could trust him with my situations. If David and his children, with all of the different things that he experienced with his children, I wasn't experiencing anything similar to what they were dealing with, nothing that severe. But none of those things caused David to miss accomplishing the things that he was supposed to accomplish for the Lord. And I think that is the same for us. And so again, we're going to wrap up for the not for the night. You probably will not see me tomorrow. Tomorrow is a service day for us at Yeshua Worship Center, 10251 Lincoln Trail in Fairview Heights. We open up evening fellowship around 6:30, and just coming home. And then we close out the night with scripture lesson. And then, so come and join us if you're free tomorrow. It'll be a good time, I do believe. It always is. So you probably won't see me tomorrow. Maybe late tomorrow night, I may come in and do something on the check-in. My son and I have been watching some TV a little bit together, and we're going to have some conversations about some of the stuff that we're watching. And but you probably won't see me back here doing scripture readings until Thursday morning, should the Lord say the same. And so until then, I want you to be blessed, be at peace. As much as it depends on you, pursue peace with all men. And so in closing, we leave you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give to you shalom, peace. Have a good night. We out of here. Bye.